Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Optimistic Future podcast. I am your host, Bryan Rade, and today I'm going to expand on some of the concepts and thoughts that I talked about in the last episode. The last episode, which is called, wrote it down here, brainstorming solutions to fix the problems of the world. I It was kind of a general introduction to a series of videos. This is the next one in that series, where I want to explore some thoughts around how we can look at more what I'm referring to as top-down approaches to help carve out an ideal future for our world. In the most of the episodes, all of the episodes on the Optimistic Future podcast leading up to this point have been looking more at bottom-up solutions, simple day-to-day things that we can all do to, just make a little difference. And if many of us make a little difference day after day, then it can equate to a very large difference. And so looking at some of those simple solutions or fairly easy to implement day-to-day solutions in our lives, which I still think is a very, very important thing for us to be doing. But I, again, wanted, as I said in the last video, last episode, wanted to start exploring some of these more top-down ideas. Without just rehashing that entire video in way of explanation, please, if you're interested in this, please cross-reference that video, and I talk about it for a good 30 to 40 minutes. So that's the backdrop there. So what I want to talk about in the video today, I was really kind of hemming and hawing over what to talk about because there are so many subcomponents of this topic. And what I thought would be useful would be to kind of start from where we talk about talk about a model for an ideal optimistic future and what that might look like day to day, and then try to reverse engineer how we get there. This is not a unique strategy that people employ in different, problem solving scenarios. But I figured, you know what, why not try applying it to this one? Again, it's a lofty goal. It's a lofty topic, trying to figure out what would be the kind of ideal scenario for our world. But let's take a crack at it and just see. If nothing else, it'll be a fun thought experiment, and maybe some practical solutions or practical strategies will come out of it. I think there will be some usefulness that comes out of it. So there are, as I mentioned in the last episode, there are a number of different angles that I've been looking at, a number of different topics that kind of tie into what an optimal future would look like, what an optimal sort of setup for our world would look like on, an economic, societal, and environmental level. And so what I'm going to talk about today again is just very much like looking at what an end goal might look like, and then I'm going to sort of reference a few things that I will flesh out in future. I'm going to reference a few topics that I will flesh out in future episodes. So please just kind of bear with me. And again, I've been steeped in this for quite a while. So, but I'm going to break it down into subtopics and whatnot coming up. So please stay tuned for future episodes there and just bear with me today. So one of the things that has really been on my mind that is being talked about a fair bit, maybe not so much in sort of like more mainstream news outlets, but certainly being talked about in different circles, is how our society is going to be very likely changing in the not too distant future. Some are saying within the next couple of years. I'm recording this in September of 2025. Some folks are saying maybe within the next couple of years, certainly within the next 10 years. It's very likely that the world as we know it is going to change because of artificial intelligence and robotics. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen, but people that are experts in these fields and folks that are very good at forecasting what is going to happen in the future because they've been right along the way, it seems like we are going in that direction. And I think that talking about this topic is very important, and I think it very much ties into how we can conceptualize what our future might look like, and I think it could look very, very good, but that's anyways, part of what I want to talk about today. There's a very, very popular podcast that is exponentially more popular than my podcast, called Diary of a CEO. I'm sure many folks listening have probably heard of this podcast, and I've listened to a bunch of episodes, and can't remember the name of the guy who runs the podcast, but anyways, he's the CEO, and he has lots of great guests, and I really enjoy his the folks that he talks to. I don't listen to all the episodes, but anyways, he had someone on within the last month or so named, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name properly, but his first name is Mo, and then I think it's Gawdat, Gawdat. Mo is a former executive from Google, to my understanding, and they talked all about many things, but including how Mo predicts the future to look in over the next, say, I think he was saying maybe over the next 15 years or so, and how AI and humanoid robotics and other robotic advancements are very likely going to change the world as we know it. And one of the things I really appreciated about Mo is that, well, many people talk about how AI and robotics are going to really disrupt the human job market. The labor force is going to change. It'll be just completely different than it is now. Most folks just talk about how there's going to be big disruption and we're just going to have to figure it out as we go along, which of course we will. However, Mo talks about how he envisions that if we do things correctly as a human race, then it could lead to this, amazing future, utopian-like world where these AI and robotic advancements can make all of our lives a lot better. Of course, if we don't play our cards right, then he talks about how it could be like a Skynet, Terminator sort of scenario, and of course that would be awful. But I really appreciate him talking about how this could be really good for people, and I'm sure there are others that talk about this too. But he's one of the first voices that I have heard talk about how this could be really good for humanity and how we could really capitalize on this. I if you're interested in this topic, I certainly recommend that episode. There is a bit of there is some he talks about some scary stuff in there in terms of how things could potentially go wrong. So if you're not if you're wanting something lighthearted and like, oh, I just want to hear about all the flowers and sunshine, maybe don't watch that episode. But he does talk about how, best case scenario, worst case scenario, and anyways, I think it's a worthwhile listen. But just forewarned that it's not just all smiles and sunshine. So just for context, and I mentioned this in the last episode, there's a very big part of me that would really like AI and future advancements in robotics to just go away. There's a big part of me that just likes the way things are now. I like the way that there are lots of jobs for humans by and large. We can just do things for ourselves. Do we really need all of this? Yes, I'm using ChatGPT. I'm using Grok. I'm using these large language models, and they've been very helpful. And I can see how actual AI, artificial general intelligence and future advancements can be really, really, really helpful. I can absolutely see that. At the same time, I'm maybe I'm a bit, old school or dinosaur-like by saying this, but I like the way things are now, and part of me just doesn't really want to court that change. Part of me would like it to just go away because it's maybe sometimes better like the devil you know than the devil you don't. With that being said, as I also said in the previous episode, I also acknowledge that I am a very privileged person in the grand scheme of things. As much as I came from very humble beginnings, growing up with a single mother and we had no money and all of that, I've had lots of opportunities, which, I've worked very hard for them, but, been able to develop a successful, business and career, and have, 3 kids and a wonderful wife. And, my life is very, very good. And I certainly recognize that many people in the world have significant financial challenges, societal challenges, etc. So, I certainly do acknowledge that, it's easy for me to say, I like things to stay the same because my life is very, very good. But at the same, so anyways, I don't want to turn anybody off by thinking oh, geez, Bryan just, loves the robots and loves the AI and all that. It's I'm very much walking both sides of the line where it's oh, I don't like it, but then I'm also acknowledging, recognizing that this is a freight train that has left the station. It is running down the hill. It is probably not going to stop unless there are mass protest in the street. Everybody just unplugs from the internet. Everybody just says nope, we're just going, back to, agrarian society days. Like it's just this is going to happen. And so where it seems that the writing on the wall is that this is where we're going, then I think it's important to talk about and see like how can we, as individuals, work to and maybe as maybe well as individuals, but like maybe as anyways, how can we think about this? How can we influence the course of things? Because goodness knows if we leave things just in the hands of the corporations, the groups that are just quite frankly like beholden to their shareholders to make as much money as possible, it's probably not going to go well because that has not gone well up to this point. For most of us, the top 1% are doing just great, but those of us who are not in the top 1%, and certainly those of the folks out there who are in say the bottom 25%, like it hasn't gone well. So we want to. I think it's important to learn about this, talk about this, and I am heartened to see not just folks like Mo Gadat, but also other folks talking about how they want to they're working there are initiatives that are in place to try to guide this in such a way to keep access to and utility of AI like very much like open, like in the public domain, and in trying to keep it out of like trying to minimize the any trying to keep it out of the hands of like exclusive corporate control, government control, etc. So there are folks that are working on this, which is great, and I'm really keeping my ear to the ground about that. So getting more to with all that backdrop out of the way. So what Mo talked about in this interview on Diary of a CEO, and then what I've also thought about over and above that conversation is how might an ideal future look? So they're talking about how robots and AI are going to displace a great percentage of our workforce, such as we know it right now. Talking about like autonomous vehicles becoming ever more prevalent. If you're not aware of this, there are autonomous, like self-driving car pilot programs that have been launched in a number of U.S. states. They're expanding all the time. They're, I believe, starting to launch some initiatives in other countries. I think there's some pilot sites in Canada and I think Germany and some other, I believe China and other places in the world. And so as self-driving vehicles become more prevalent, then that's going to eventually translate into self-driving transport, like transport vehicles. Like long haul trucks and things like that, and so that's going to displace a lot of individuals because we do a lot of transportation around the world. So long haul, there'll be I assume like self-driving transport trucks and maybe boats eventually, and maybe airplanes eventually. And when I say maybe, I mean definitely. And of course, this will phase out over a certain period of time. But so far, it seems to be going quite well in terms of the self-driving cars seem to be like, I think something like 10 times safer than humans driving those cars. Because of course, some people, they're driving while they're really tired. They're driving when they're stressed. They've got their kids, complaining in the back. They're maybe inebriated, like where self-driving vehicles don't fall prey to any of that. So, like that's going to be a big, say, workplace or workforce disruption. AI, disrupting, supplanting the need for folks in like say graphic design and marketing and maybe accounting and just things that involve like humans like number banging into computers. It's like a lot of that is going to be displaced by AI and other and other industries like humanoid robots and things like that. And so if we look at that as like just again, please bear with me here, but if we just say take it as a given, just for the sake of this part of the conversation. If we take it as a given that there's going to be a significant part of the workforce disrupted, and I've heard numbers around like 80%, give or take. There are certain industries and certain fields where it seems like they'll probably be immune to AI and robotic disruption, at least for the long foreseeable future. They talk about how anyone that's involved in like what they call like the caring profession, so like nurses, doctors, although AI and robotics will probably certainly do some disruption in that regard, but like massage therapists, naturopathic doctors like me. So again, very, very fortunate in terms of where I'm at because I'm not worried about my future career, thankfully. So, chiropractors, like folks in the caring professions, like there's and also around elder care as well, like for folks in like, long-term care facilities and things like that. Like there's the anticipation that those industries will probably not be disrupted significantly, and that folks probably don't want, even if their humanoid robot like looks really nice, it's like, I just don't know if I really want you like massaging me. Like there'd probably be more reluctance to accept that. Or folks that are in industries that involve more like, just human experiences, like, going for hikes in the wilderness or like, campsites, different things like that. Like there will likely not be as much disruption because the prediction is that folks are going to still want that to be very much like a human exclusive sort of experience, not like, oh, I want like the robot to take me like, hiking through on the Machu Picchu trail or something like that. So there are certain industries that they're anticipating will probably not be disruption. And of course, well, maybe not of course, but it's, I think, presume that folks that are at, the top of their fields will probably not be disrupted, at least not in the, foreseeable future. So like, the very best lawyers out there, the best accountants, the best graphic design people, like someone's still going to need to, for at least for the time being, want to have a human at the top of the pecking order, the top of the pyramid, to direct the robots and the AI what to do. So it's anyways predicted that there's maybe going to be around like an 80% elimination of jobs that humans are doing right now, again over the next little while. And so what best case scenario, and this from my perspective, best case scenario, what might that look like for us in a good way? And what could happen, and this is what Mo Goodat talks about in his interview, or references it, is that could be really, really good for us if society structures this well. Because what it could look like is it could set things up so that we can have the optimal lives that we want because we have the AI and the robotics to do all the jobs that we don't want to do. So what that might look like, and this is again just speaking from my view of the world. Everyone's different, of course. So someone might hear what I'm about to say and say, like, that sounds terrible. But anyways, what I think is when I take a step back and think like, well, what would I really like to do every day? Like, what would I like my average day to look like? And bearing in mind that I really love my job. So I really love, treating patients, working with them as a naturopathic doctor. So I love doing it, and I've been doing it for 16 years, and I plan to do it until the day I die. I'm eventually going to, pare back my hours as I get, markedly older. I'm in my mid 40s now. But I love doing what I do. But what I would say for like kind of an ideal day for me is that I would love to have time to, be able to exercise on a daily basis, which I do, but I have to like fit it in while my kids are running around and, cramming it in there, like, squeeze in, exercise where I can. So I'd like to have time to exercise. I'd like to have time to play sports. I'd like to have time to go out for a walk, go out in nature, just spend some time outside. There are days that I don't spend any time outside except between my car and my office and my car and my house, and that's it. I would like to have time to just, relax, have some, thinking time, some mindfulness time on a daily basis. I would like to have some time where I can just have some one-on-one time with my wife. I'd like to have time where I could have one-on-one time with each of my kids. Have time where I can spend time with all my kids and my wife together. Just have some family time. Have some time to chat with a friend. Maybe do something with one of my friends, which we fit in like maybe once every 3 months because I have 3 kids and too many patients, and it's just a very busy life. I would like to see some patients, so I'd like to do some work where I'm, helping people. I'd like to have more time to research and create content for this podcast. I'd like to have more time to create content and research for my other podcast, which is called the Overcoming Chronic Illness podcast, which relates more to my naturopathic practice, of course. Man, what else would I like to do? Many other things. More time to like, give my mom a call more than, the couple of times a week that I do right now. Give my dad a call more than the couple of times a week that I do right now. Talk to my sister. Like there are lots of things that I would like to do. And man, oh man, like as I'm going through the list, I'm like, that's not an exhaustive list. Some time to like maybe tidy up, the house a little bit more and help my wife out a little bit more there. She stays home with the kids. So long and short of it is like, I would really like to fit like lots and lots of things into my day. The reality of it is that, I'm spending like on average at least 8 hours a day with work. And so, and again, I love it, but it really supplants the time that I would otherwise be able to spend doing all those other things. And so if there was a future scenario where we have, AI and robots that are doing a lot of other jobs. So meaning that like say there's a transport truck driver who's like, yeah, I don't mind driving transport truck. Like I enjoy it, but like, man, I always kind of wanted to be a naturopathic doctor. And so that person's like, oh, I don't have a job anymore. Like I'm not driving truck, so I'm going to go study and become a naturopathic doctor. And so now there's another naturopathic doctor that could sit, and this is a very simplistic, odd scenario, but now there's another one. And so like now instead of me needing to work, say 8 hours a day, then now I'm working 4 hours a day because me and, Bob, the long haul truck driver, Dr. Bob, now we split the workload. But then maybe that accountant that, no longer has a job because they're not the best accountant in the world, they're just a mediocre accountant. Maybe that person's like, you know what? I've actually always had a passion for naturopathic medicine, just never went that road or whatnot. And so then now we've got, three of us. So now we're splitting the 8 hour day three ways. And then there's another one, another one. And so maybe there's a scenario where I only need to see a couple of hours of patients a day, and me and my three other compadres, we're all splitting the load. So there's not the need for the long haul truck drivers because we have self-driving vehicles to do that. But now there's more of us that are able to get into the caring professions, and all of us get to have our cake and eat it too, and that we can all work on our what we're feeling passionate about on a work level. We still kind of get that satisfaction of seeing our patients and helping folks in that way. But then we have so much more time to do those other things we want to do, take care of ourselves, spend more time with our family. This could, create a scenario where, if say, one or both parents say like, you know what, we just had a baby, like we just want to stay home with our baby, like, and goodness knows we've had three babies, my wife and I, and it's a lot of work, and so it's a beautiful experience, but like man, oh man, like we could easily have justified, both of us staying home, not just my wife staying home with our little ones, and so like it would create more flexibility where it's like, oh, like, one parent wants to stay home with the kids. They maybe don't want to send their child off to daycare. And I'm not saying not to send your kids to daycare. Parents have to choose what's best for them. And of course, in many cases, parents don't have the choice because they need a two-income household in order to make ends meet. But it would give more flexibility for that. And, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but, if we had more time, if we weren't so busy with work all the time, then we would have more time to spend with our kids. We'd be able to get more enjoyment out of the time with our kids. We'd be there to raise our kids directly more as opposed to, needing like I guess at the end of the day, somebody's got to take care of the kids. So it's either going to be you, or it's going to be the teachers, or it's going to be the daycare worker, or it's going to be the babysitter after work until you get home through rush hour traffic or whatever. My understanding is that parents taking care of their kids is the best for the kids. So when we talk about and again, some parents and families don't have the option, so I'm not casting any shade, but just saying that, in an ideal scenario, if we had the option, the luxury of having more of that time, like it could be really, really good, like for our kids, like on a family level, that would help our society overall. Because my understanding is that there has been lots of research showing that when parents are able to, spend optimal amounts of time with their kids, then it leads to the kids feeling more having less anxiety, feeling more having I guess overall like better health and better mental health and easier times in the world, shall we say? So like that would really help to. That would have a significant beneficial effect on society as a whole, I believe. Might help to put a dent in the mental health care crisis that we have in the Western world and maybe other parts of the world too. I'm not don't know about all the different geographical regions of the world, but we certainly have problems with it here in North America, that's for sure. And so it what the picture I'm trying to paint here is that being able to outsource a lot of jobs to robots and AI could be really, really helpful and create an amazing opportunity for our species. And could really help us to focus more on the things that matter the most. Because, don't get me wrong, if somebody like really loves, I don't know, working at a desk job and doing whatever paperwork they're doing for the big corporation that they work for, and like if they get a lot of like joy and fulfillment out of that, then amazing. Like that's wonderful. But if we take a step back and just kind of ask ourselves, like what is the purpose of us being here? Like what is the purpose of us, what is the meaning of life? Oh boy, we're getting really heavy here in this episode, but like, what is the meaning of life? When we're lying there on our deathbeds at some point, and we look back and say like, man, like, what were the things that I did in my life that brought me the most joy, the most fulfillment? I know for me, when I reflect on my life up to this point, as I do from time to time when I squirrel away those, rare moments of mindfulness and reflection, it's certainly not like, oh man, like, I just really think back to that time that I worked as a summer job in that HR department for the hydro company, like the power company, and like, man, like just number banging those numbers, like that was bliss. That's really what it's all about. It's like, no, the things that I think back about, of course, are like the special times that I've spent with my loved ones, with family, with friends, thinking about like the um, moments in my practice when patients are, feeling so much better, when they say things like, like, oh my gosh, like you really changed my life. Um, these are the things that like, mountain hikes that I've done, in different parts of the world, and just seeing those like amazing, landscapes. These are the things that we really care the most about. These are those like really important moments. And like, man, oh man, imagine if we could like, 5x or 10x those experiences in our lives. How amazing would that be? And if we had more time where we were able to focus on those things that we like to do, if we had more time where we could focus on our health, eating a healthier diet, like goodness knows if people weren't so busy, if they weren't running the rat race, again, stereotyping here, but a lot of folks are, it's like, okay, we're going to have time to like cook as a family. We're going to be able to make healthier food. It's like, oh, we don't need to like, just, oh my gosh, I'm just going to like go get some fast food. And like, it's like, oh, we just don't have time. And of course, when you're feeling exhausted, like, or if you're feeling like, oh man, life's so busy. It's like, oh, it's that easy dopamine hit of like, yeah, I'm just going to go get that like, greasy, burger and fries. And like, then of course you never feel better afterwards. You always feel worse, but you get that short term, pleasure or whatever. Anyways, there'd just be, in my opinion, a snowball effect where we could focus more on like, the things that matter the most, focus more on our families, have more time. So, AI and robotics could do that. Now, of course, the obvious devil's advocate here is that, like, well, how do we get that going? And is there any way on this green earth that the large corporations, the people that are just, their mandate is to make as much money as humanly possible for themselves and their shareholders, how is this ever going to happen? And these are good questions. So, and these are topics that we will get into in future episodes because I'm winding down on this time. I have to get to a patient soon, so I'm going to stop talking pretty soon. But I just wanted to. This episode, I really wanted to just kind of paint that picture of like how this trend, that this seemingly inevitable fate that we are hurtling towards, how it could potentially be really, really good. And this is the Optimistic Future podcast. So, quite frankly, like, my mandate to my shareholders, of which I have none, of course, because this is not a corporation, but my mandate to my viewers is that we're always going to talk about the optimistic future that could be present, that we can work towards. Goodness knows I cannot predict the future, and goodness knows we may be hurtling towards a Skynet, Terminator type scenario. I really, really hope that we're not. But I know that as long as there is breath in my lungs, I am going to work towards striving towards the optimal future, or the good future, the happy future, our lives are so much better future, as much as I'm able to. So I'd be very, very curious to hear folks' thoughts about this. If you want to post, if you're watching this on YouTube and want to post a comment in the comment section, please consider doing that. You can also go to our website, optimisticfuturepodcast.com, and there's a web form on there, so you can email, and I get those emails directly. So let me know what you think about this, if you have any thoughts. Also, if there are thoughts that you have about future directions, for how I can sort of guide this conversation, kind of what you're interested in, or things you've heard about, if you're like, oh, there's this really great interview with so and so, and like it's really in line with what you're talking about, or there's a complete counter view to what you're saying, please consider emailing me about that or posting it in the comment section. This is, I think, just really important stuff to think about. And if this topic is something that you're finding to be interesting and you know someone that might also enjoy hearing about this, and again, I'm going to flesh this out in future episodes more so, please consider just letting a friend know about, or someone that know about this podcast, just to help grow the viewership a bit. I would appreciate it. I'm going to leave it there for now, and please stay tuned for the next episode.